Hey everybody, I'm Justin Czar with bowhunting.com and Bowhunter.die, and today I am here to give you guys 8 tips to help you find more shed antlers this spring. Number 1, scouting. This is one of those things that not a lot of people think about, but all the serious shed antler hunters that I know do this frequently. Now there's 2 different ways to do this, right? You can get out of your vehicle, get out of your house and go for a walk if there's not too much snow on the ground. And what you're looking for is the hot sign at the time. You got to remember that after the hunting season is over, we've got these cold winter conditions. These deer are on food sources pretty heavily, and they may be bedding in different areas than they were bedding at earlier in the year. So if you go off of the information that you had during the fall, it may not be accurate for what is happening right now. So you need to find where the deer are at right now when they're dropping their antlers. As I said, there's 2 ways to do it. You can get out and you can walk around, or you can do it from your vehicle. Drive around at night. Drive around your farms or the areas that you're going to be shed hunting. Look for that concentration of animals because that's where you're going to find the antlers. Number 2, know when to go look for antlers. All the people that I know that are dead serious about looking for shed antlers prefer overcast days to go look for sheds, hopefully once the snow has melted off. If you go on those overcast, even rainy days, sometimes they can be miserable to spend hours out there walking around. But the overcast weather is going to eliminate shadows, eliminate that harsh sun, and will actually make those antlers pop out. I've had some of my best shed hunting days ever when it's overcast outside. Now, if you've got snow on the ground, obviously this can still be a little bit difficult, but if you can wait for hard packed snow. We just got a bunch of snow here in the Midwest. We got almost a foot on the ground right now. It's pretty fluffy. Those antlers are most likely buried. But if you've got a little bit of snow and it's hard packed, makes finding those antlers that are sitting on top of the snow a lot easier. Number 3, always have your binoculars with you. Having a good set of optics when you are out shed hunting is a must. Whether they are in your vehicle and you're looking for road sheds, or whether you're out walking around your piece of property and you see something out across the field, trust me, it's going to save you the walk of a couple hundred yards across a muddy or slippery or frozen field only to find out that it was a downed tree or a limb and not an antler. So make sure you have your binoculars with you at all times. Number 4, look for a piece of an antler and not the entire thing. If you walk around the woods and you're just looking for an entire antler laying there on the ground, easy to see from 100 yards away, you're going to be very disappointed because you're not going to find very many of them. The best shed hunters have learned to look for things like a single tine sticking up at a weird angle, that unique curvature of a main beam, maybe the white pedicle of the base if the antler is laying tines down. Look for a piece of an antler, not the entire thing, and you're going to find a lot more antlers doing it that way. Number 5, start with the obvious locations. So if you did your scouting earlier in the year, the antlers have now fallen off, start with those areas, right? Deer spend a lot of time feeding during the late season, especially when it's really cold out. So hit the obvious areas and the food sources. The next place you're going to want to hit is going to be any south-facing hillsides. South-facing hillsides are going to get more sunlight, which means more warmth. Deer are going to spend a lot of time bedding and browsing on those south-facing hillsides. The north-facing hillsides, in my experience, don't tend to hold many deer or many sheds during the late season, and sometimes they can be a pain because they hold a lot of snow and ice, which can make walking on them pretty treacherous. So focus on the south-facing hillsides, the main food sources, and then the travel corridors in between those 2 spots. Number 6, don't be afraid to walk in some of those overlooked areas, whether it's close to the parking lot on public land, or whether it's way far back in a swamp on a little dry island, or maybe just a small little strip of grass or a fence line in a field. Make sure you check out those spots because these deer are going to go anywhere they can to, number 1, escape pressure, and number 2, find food, which can be in some very unique locations where you wouldn't expect to find a shed antler. Number 7, don't be afraid to ask for permission. This is one of these things that a lot of guys are just afraid to walk up to a house, knock on the door, and ask to go look for antlers. But trust me, landowners and farmers are much more inclined to give you permission to go look for shed antlers than they are to actually go hunting. And truth be told, farmers hate antlers because they get stuck in their tractor tires, cost them a lot of money if that happens. So in a lot of cases, they're thankful for people to go pick up those shed antlers. And as a side benefit, if you do get access to a new piece of ground to go shed hunting, you just never know what it may turn into in the future. I know a few people who have started off by gaining access to look for shed antlers, and they've turned into great hunting spots for them in the future. So don't be afraid to get out of your vehicle, knock on some doors, and ask for permission. Number 8, always use a mobile app. Using a mobile app like HuntStand to track where you walk while you're shed hunting can be an invaluable tool. Trust me, you're going to go out there, you're going to spend hours and hours, maybe all day walking around, and you're going to think to yourself, man, I have covered this piece of ground, I have covered this farm as well as I could, and I found one antler or no antlers. You're going to take that app out, you're going to look where you walked, and you are probably going to notice that there's big areas of ground that you completely missed that you thought maybe you had walked through. And that can be the difference between finding no antlers or coming home with a couple antlers in your backpack. All right, everybody, we hope those 8 tips are going to help you find some more shed antlers this spring. Now, one thing to keep in mind, this isn't a tip for finding more antlers, but just a friendly piece of advice. Just because you find an antler in a certain location doesn't necessarily mean that's a good location to go hunt next fall. And for the same reason we talked about scouting is tip number 1. These deer move around all year during the year based on the available food sources, pressure, environmental factors, and other things like that. So where you find a shed antler in January, February, or March doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a deer there in October, November, or December of the following year. So just be careful, because sometimes these shed antlers can lead us on wild goose chases. But I tell you what, it's a lot of fun, and we hope these tips helped you guys find some more shed antlers this year.